So we're here at the CCA Workbench with the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques, Dave.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. And we're talking about one of my favorite species, redfish.
Yep.
So,
and we're talking about catching them on a soft plastic, which I was just telling you, that was the first time I ever caught a redfish, was on a soft plastic. It was a boon trout tout with a red head on a jig head, and this color was the tout. The tout was exactly this color. So,
well, I tell you, I'm really excited that you decided to really chisel down on one department or one fishing style of fishing that we do for redfish.
It's one we get the most questions about, because when you're using these soft plastics, a lot of people don't know how to hook them correctly, and they don't know what kind of water to use them in. If they put on a big heavy weight and they use it in real shallow water and end up dragging a bunch of weeds in. So, I figured it'd be a good time to figure out how we can get these guys catching a redfish on soft plastics without having to.
All right, so let's get right into it. So if we were going to use a saltwater assassin 5-inch shad, what we're going to do here essentially is you got to decide what depth of water you're fishing in. So typically we use an 1/8 ounce jig from about 12 inches to 24 inches of water. Now, if it's on a windy day, you might have to go a little heavier on the jig to keep it from blowing around.
So you can make a good cast.
If the water gets a little deeper, then you're gonna go to a 1/4 ounce jig from 24 to 36 inches of water. But anyway, the key to all of this is how you rig the bait. So you're gonna simply take the jig head and go in the nose like so. Doesn't really matter what weight it is, they're all rigged the same. Right. And these plungers that Bass Assassin makes, you're just gonna push up on top of there until you get to the jig head itself. Now, as you can tell, it's absolutely perfectly straight. That's very important, because technically what we're trying to do here is to bounce this jig head on the bottom. And remember, Dave, every time this jig hits the bottom, it's gonna make a puff in the sand.
Right.
And when you jerk it again, it makes another puff. So to a redfish or any predator, it looks like something hopping along the bottom. Right. So that's key.
And you don't want them humped up, and you don't want them off to the side, because when you'll be jigging it, it won't pull straight. It'll go off to the side. Not in a good way.
Exactly. Remember, when you're fishing artificial baits and you want a lot of action out of your lure, you're going to want to tie it on with a uni knot or some type of loop knot. I use a uni. Other guys use different types of knot. But if you decide that you're getting grass, then what you'd want to do is go to a weedless style of bait. Now what we have is this is rigged weedless, because of the nature of how the hook goes into the soft plastic. It has a screw-on lock, and the weight is essentially on the shaft of the hook, and we're gonna just pull through like so.
Where I fish up in the Mosquito Lagoon area, Cape Canaveral, that's pretty much what I use all the time, because we have a lot of grass. Well, we used to have a lot more grass, but that'll keep the stuff off there.
Now, there is a variety of other types of plastics. This would be considered a jerk bait. It's a walk the dog style of lure underneath the surface of the water. Right. Another set of categories is baits that come with paddle tails. Now, whether it's a 5-inch sea shad like this, or whether it's a small 4-inch, you hear a lot of guys talking about the 4-inch sea shad. It doesn't really matter. The key is that you have to just continue to reel this, because the vibration of the tail is similar to the action of a weedless spoon. They feel it vibrating as it approaches. They look up and around for it. And then more importantly, then what they do is they attack that. Now, the other way that we rig these baits from time to time is simply with no weight on a weedless hook, just like you would rig a worm, a Texas rig style.
Get those suspended fish that aren't on the top and aren't on the bottom.
Right, those are the fish that are up there underneath those mullet that are laying up in the sun on the surface. The mullet trigger them to want to eat. Most of the time they can't eat the mullet because the mullet is too big. And then we're talking about the big mullet is where you find a lot of these redfish.
Big redfish.
Of course. So, that's the 101 on rigging plastics when it comes to redfish, and I think you covered it quite well. You laid out all the right...
I think you covered it right well.
No, but you laid out all the right tools. You had it hit on the head, and then obviously you have, spinner baits that are very popular in other places.
That's another good way to work the water column in the middle and not get in the grass and still have a nice heavy weight to make a long cast.